Welcome back to the podcast. We just finished up Thanksgiving break if you're listening to this live. And I don't know about you. I definitely have kind of like mixed feelings from a lot of people, especially because I just started my fitness challenge and I have a lot of motivation on one side, but I also have a lot of burnout on another side from just like different relationships that I have. And I'll kind of break down what that looks like because I'm kind of going through a little mix of both where I'm really motivated, I'm really excited, but I'm also really burnt out and I'm dealing with that winter slump. And not necessarily from like the fitness and nutrition aspect a little bit, but also just from the burnout aspect of the entire year and going into a new year and just feeling like things are really revving up right now when I want to be slowing down a little bit more. So I kind of want to break a little bit of that down in case you're relating with it, but I'm also just having a lot of conversations around this. And I think a lot of people are going through similar aspects. And I know that this is going to be something that people kind of come to in a couple of weeks with December is getting into a little bit more of a winter slump and feeling a little bit unmotivated, especially as things are getting more busy and as routines are slowing down and getting out of normal life and feeling like you just kind of don't have a good routine is kind of getting into that winter slump and not having enough motivation to kind of keep you going, especially as days get colder and darker, which we've definitely experienced here where it's gotten darker, it's gotten colder, and it's gotten way colder. Like we dropped to like 20 degrees this week. So it's been a little bit more challenging to be more motivated, but it's also a very busy time of year for me. January and February are one of the biggest years, obviously, in the fitness industry. I look forward to it every single year because it's generally a time that I get to meet so many different women and start to grow different areas of the business, which I just absolutely love. Like, I'm so passionate about it. I feel like I talk about this all the time, but I'm so passionate about helping you in your transformation journey and helping you kind of piece together the things that feel like are missing and that you've struggled to find answers to. So I always love getting to experience this at this time of year, but it also comes at a cost in terms of sometimes my sanity and my time and where I feel like I can focus my energy. And today I was just really feeling the burnout because even though we're coming out of Thanksgiving week at a very busy weekend because Cyber Monday and Black Friday and my fitness challenge launched on the 1st, and I also launched my recipe ebook, which is my macro-friendly high protein recipe ebook. And a lot just kind of went on behind the scenes and I had a lot going on that I just feel like I hit a wall this week and now I'm just feeling a little bit burned out. I'm hitting that winter slump, but I also know that I don't have time to slow down. So I'm kind of at this competing area where I'm struggling to stay motivated, but I'm also physically exhausted and trying to have a good balance of it. And a balance is something that I preach so much. I feel like it's so inauthentic to show up and just act like be motivated, be motivated, be motivated, and preach the things that I preach on the podcast all the time and not share. Like, I go through these things too. I'm really struggling at this moment, trying to stay motivated and to hit all of my goals and get everything done. And specifically, I feel like I just don't have enough time in the day. I was up until midnight 2 or 3 times this week, just trying to cram everything in and make sure that I was meeting deadlines and getting everything done. And it's a crazy time of year for me. And I wouldn't change a thing about it. I absolutely love everything about it. It's also part of what we're going to be talking about a little bit today, which is comfort zone and balance and just making sure that you're kind of moving out of phases and growing into new phases, but also setting yourself up for success because I feel like this is an area where we all can improve and we all can continue to develop. There's also this discomfort that I feel like that isn't talked about enough. And I really think this because so many people get into this on and off cycle with fitness and nutrition where they're on when they're motivated and they're off when they're not. And then they try and get back on. And that's kind of where that cycle comes from. And just feeling like you can't be consistent no matter how much you try, no matter how hard you try at a plan or you do the right things, you just can't stay consistent at long term. And there's 2 different phases to this. And I feel like that kind of ties into what I'm going through and kind of just like an epiphany that I had this weekend. The first is an identity shift, and it's kind of shifting your mindset into thinking about the things that you have to do in order to become a different person. Because in order to have that transformation, whatever it may be, you have to kind of get into the mindset and get into a lifestyle that's different than what you're living right now, which is maybe full of your comfort zones. And there's sacrifice along with that. So it does require you to do an identity shift and also have sacrifices. So that's the first piece. The second is potentially not knowing the direction you go or having so much of a comfort zone that it scares you to move and it scares you to make changes. And you're always waiting for that perfect moment or that perfect feeling and feeling like you're going to be able to shift into that zone because you feel like it one day and you wake up and you have all of the answers and you have all the information. And that just doesn't happen. And especially doesn't happen in your comfort zone. If you're in a place right now where you're doing the same things over and over and over again and you're in the on and off cycle, are you actually taking the actions that you need to? Are you pushing yourself? Are you challenging yourself? Or are you doing the same things on a daily basis that are consistent, but not necessarily challenging you or pushing you or increasing that intensity, which in that case would lead you to basically staying the same, right? If you don't have change, you're not going to change. So you have to make sure that you have that pressure and you have that tension, and that's not going to happen in your comfort zone. So I think there's two caveats to it, and there's two different areas that you have to be paying attention to, and kind of bringing this full circle to what I was talking about in the beginning, where I struggle right now and where I'm really just kind of having this like epiphany and realization of like, I'm going through this. I have to kind of get out of my comfort zone and I have to shift into this identity and this perspective of what it's going to take in order to grow my business to a certain point, or to be able to handle a certain aspect of my business, or to grow it to a certain capacity. And it's exhausting. And this is kind of like that middle piece that I talk about a lot, where you can get burnt out really quickly because there's so much going on. You have to shift out of your comfort zone, but then you also have to take on the challenge of what it takes to grow in the middle when not a lot of change is happening, or you're doing the same things on a routine basis and a consistent basis, and you're kind of staying stagnant and the physical changes aren't necessarily happening. The bigger changes aren't happening as much as you might like to think. And it's hard to really stay consistent. And this is where a lot of people get into that on-off cycle. And I was realizing this the other day when I was feeling very exhausted, and I was like, okay, is this really the direction I want to go with my business, where I take on all of these different areas and where I'm working with so many different people and I have so many different things to kind of help blend the audience that I've grown and making sure that people have the resources that they need? And how can I take all of this on and still have a family, have a life, and make sure that there's things outside of that that I can focus on? And it kind of was like a self-reflecting that I had, where I was thinking about, okay, well, there's going to be hard times and there's going to be challenging times. And that's just generally what happens in growth, right? Like, I'm not trying to wish any of this away. I wouldn't change a single thing that I have, but I also know that it's hard and it's challenging. And it's the same thing that I preach on a daily basis, that it's hard and it's challenging, and you just can't give up just because in that moment it's challenging and you're exhausted, and maybe it's not where you want to be spending all of your time, or maybe you're spending a lot of your time there. But what is the bigger outcome? What is the bigger goal? What are you chasing? And what is that identity that you just can't get out of your head? Because I truly believe that that's something that is worth chasing and worth committing to, regardless of how hard it gets. And something that I always like to kind of like even rephrase for myself is, the time that you spend on the project, or the time that you spend on something that feels frustrating or feels challenging, is time that can be used in other ways. But if you were to ask yourself, are you wasting time with the things you're doing? I would bet that the answer would be no when it's related to that bigger goal. If you were asking yourself, I want to lose 15 pounds, and maybe the scale's not moving like you want to, if you were to spend your time, instead of working out, scrolling Instagram, or not going for a walk, or eating foods that you wouldn't want, that wouldn't help you get there, do you feel like that is going to help you get to that goal faster? Do you feel like your time is wasted working out? What is that feeling? What is that emotion? And sadly, if you're watching this video on YouTube, I did have to turn on a light. So the lighting definitely just changed. And it is what it is. And we're going to roll with it because the sun just went away. But what I want you to kind of think about in these areas, and when you're thinking about how you're spending your time and how hard it might be to commit to something right now, is where you would be spending your time otherwise. And if it's now something that you need to either balance better, you need to have a better schedule with, maybe more structure with, or is it something that's just hard in the moment and it's hard mentally and you mentally have to push through? You need to remove the belief that it's going to be an easy journey and that it's going to be something that you can do very easily, and instead try and think about the ways that you can challenge yourself and push yourself mentally and overcome these things, because there's going to be something greater on the other end of it, regardless of how hard it is in the middle, because the middle is always going to be challenging, especially when results aren't following. And I want to switch this to a little bit more of like the transformation aspect of, if you're struggling losing weight, or if you're struggling building muscle mass, or if you're just struggling with that recomp and kind of getting that routine and that healthier lifestyle together. Because I've had a lot of conversations the last couple of weeks in this area of where women are feeling like, okay, I'm showing up, I'm putting in the effort, I'm doing the work, I'm doing the hard work. It's not been easy for me. And I feel like I'm challenging myself on the nutrition piece. I'm eating the right foods, I'm eating clean, and I'm working out really hard, but I'm not seeing changes. The first thing you need to look at is, why why you might not be seeing changes. Where is your consistency and where is your structure in this? Because yes, if you are saying I'm eating 1,500 calories and that's what my macros say they need to be, and I'm eating clean and I'm working out 3 to 4 times a week, I want you to be honest with yourself about the reality and the truth behind that as well. Because as I dig deeper and as I have some of these conversations, we generally find that it's more of an aspirational goal. It's more of the mindset of I try and I strive to do these things, but the results haven't come as quickly as I want. So I'm not as consistent as I might believe I am when I track it consistently. Nutrition is either maybe a little bit off in terms of tracking's not right, or you're not tracking consistently. So your weekly averages are off. So maybe you're only tracking 1,500 calories 2 times a week when you thought it was 7. So now 5 days have wiggle room to really throw off your nutrition. Or maybe you've missed a few workouts here and there throughout the month and it's caused you to be a little bit more lenient in your workouts. You're not hitting your step goal and things just are kind of compiling in terms of feeling overwhelmed versus actual consistency and not paying forward the results you want. But the other aspect of that is doing the work and not getting the result you want because you're not following the right structure for the outcome you want. We talk about that a lot in terms of you're eating as little as possible, you're working out as much as possible, and you're not seeing results. Well, the problem with that is there is a state that you have to balance out with your nutrition. Just eating less and training more is not going to get you the outcome you want, especially if that is growing stronger glutes or getting more toned. You are going to be in a survival state after a period of time where your body is truly trying to make sure that it can function. And if you're experiencing fatigue, if you're experiencing stress, if you are feeling like you can't be consistent with your workouts, you're not motivated, you don't have any energy, your digestion's off, either you're not hungry or you're always hungry. These are subtle cues that your plan isn't working and that you're not aligned on the terms of nutrition and training that's going to get you the outcome you want, whether it's too restrictive and you just can't stay consistent with it, or if it's been too restrictive so long that your metabolism has adapted in a way that it's responding to the input that you're giving it. Can you slow your metabolism down? Can you ruin your metabolism? Have I destroyed my metabolism? Does it change as I age? There's different factors to this. To give you a very simple answer, you can improve your metabolism based on the way that you treat your metabolism and the factors that contribute to it. And basically your daily habits are the things that are going to contribute to the outcome of your metabolism. If your metabolism is slow, you need to look at your nutrition, your sleep, and your training, and you need to figure out where is that piece or what are the factors that you are engaging in on a daily basis that is going to drive the outcome of the state that your metabolism is in. You can fix your metabolism, you can make it run more effectively and more efficiently, but you cannot do that in a state of less and a state of deprivation and restriction. You have to do that in a state of healing and in a state of trying to give your body more of the things that it needs so it can thrive, so that your metabolism can thrive. If you're in a restrictive state, if you're in a state where you are trying to deprive it of certain things to get into a state where you feel like you're skinniest, you're going to deprive your metabolism. Your metabolism is going to live based on those factors, which means it's going to slow down. Think of it this way. If you're eating less and you're training more, you've now increased the output of which your body is going to burn calories. Your body still needs the same amount of calories to maintain itself and to maintain essential functions. But now you're pulling from it and you're asking for more energy. And then you're feeding it less food and it's going to respond by saying, hey, slow down. We can't actually use the same amount of energy that we've been using to run all of the functions of our body, because if we do, we're going to run out. And so then it's going to slow down certain things that are not essential, but it's also going to slow down the rate at which it burns calories because it doesn't want to burn off the fuel that you're giving it too soon. And it starts to get into a system where it understands, okay, if we've been at a month and we're only eating 1,400 calories, but we really need 2,200 calories, we've got to slow it down so that it doesn't burn as much at the rapid pace it is, or we're going to run out of energy and we can't run our essential functions. And so that's why the things start to slow down, why you stop seeing results and why you feel sluggish and why you have the outcome that you do when it comes to your metabolism. You have to make sure you're paying attention to the factors that are impacting your metabolism and think of it more of it as an impact versus age and genetics. It is truly more of how you treat it in your daily habits that are going to determine how your metabolism is functioning right now. And you can fix that. You can do different things to improve the state and the speed of your metabolism. And it might cause you to be a little bit uncomfortable because it's going to require you to potentially eat more. It's going to require you to really dial in your training in a specific way and focus on quality over quantity. It's going to require you to be eating certain foods that are going to fuel it, whether that's carbs or protein or or a mixture of both, and not necessarily just eating the low calorie and low carb foods if that's not what your body needs right now. And sometimes that shift is pushing people out of their comfort zone because of fears they have around carbs or eating too many calories, or the unresolved on and off structure that they have with nutrition that's going to lead them to having a hard time moving forward, because now they have to push themselves into an identity that they're not familiar with. And it's so challenging to do that. And I don't think it's talked about enough, because there's that comfort zone and there's that identity that are going to keep you stuck. If you cannot associate with that identity and cannot understand the identity that you need to take in now and kind of live by, it's going to be hard to be consistent. But if you are also stuck in a place of your comfort zone and not really sure how to make those changes because you're scared of being uncomfortable, you're scared of the changes that you have to make, you're scared of putting trust into something that you're unfamiliar with, or even you're just scared of failing yourself again, those are things that are going to hold you back, and it's going to prevent you from getting out of that on-off cycle. And it's a conversation, like I said, that I've had a lot over the last couple of weeks of I'm trying everything, but I'm not seeing results. But also when it comes to pushing into a different direction, it's a little bit uncomfortable and it's hard to move forward with that. So I want to kind of talk about how to make those shifts and why it's so important that you kind of get into a realization of these things are going to have to happen, and there's going to be discomfort, there's going to be potentially sacrifice, and there's also going to be a release of who you are right now to grow into the person that you want to be in order to get those results. So I want to kind of dive into those different areas and how you can do that, and also what's next. And this can be this stuck season. If you think about where it's really challenging to take the next step, oftentimes I recommend that you look at the things that are internally giving you red flags, right? I'm going to just go with a very common one that I've had a conversation around, and it's carbs. Fear of eating more carbs or fear of eating more calories out of fear of gaining weight. If that is a concern for you, I want to just validate that that is a valid concern based on the diet culture that we have grown up in, based on the way that people talk about fitness and nutrition and foods, and the negative connotation that carbs have received over the years through the diet culture. It is not something that you made up. It is not something that necessarily impacted you personally, but it is possible that it is something that impacted you depending on how you were eating, depending on the foods you were eating, and the calories at which you were eating. However, I want to say that carbs are not the enemy. Anything, carbs are the one thing that most people underestimate that are going to be the reason of why they can be more successful if they can improve their relationship with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the main energy source for your body, and especially if you are lifting heavy, training heavy, and constantly doing more exercise, carbohydrates are going to benefit you drastically, especially in the process of protein synthesis, which is going to help you build more muscle mass, but in the process of recovery, in the process of sleep, and all the things that are going to regulate your ability to get stronger and get better. They will also keep you energized so that you have less of that fatigue crash, but you can also show up and give more intensity in your workouts. But you have to also give and take a little bit. When you want to give more in your workouts, you have to eat a little bit more. If you want to build more muscle mass, you have to eat a little bit more. And I say this with a disclaimer because it doesn't just mean eat more blindly. You need to eat more for the goal that you have for yourself specifically and where you're at specifically. I created a macro form a couple of weeks ago where you could fill out the form and I would personalize your macros for you. And the response that I got in terms of the amount of calories that people were eating, even if they wanted to be in a deficit, was shocking in some ways. Not shocking necessarily because I've been doing this long enough that I see it all, but shocking in the sense that I would have people who would come to me asking for a deficit. We calculate about 1,800 calories based on where they were currently at, and they were eating anywhere from 1,200 to 1,400 calories a day. But the caveat to that was when they were tracking, that's what they were eating. When they weren't tracking, they have no idea because it was so restrictive they couldn't stay in that state, or they were feeling so unenergized, they couldn't show up to their workouts, they weren't feeling their best, they were feeling bloated. And these are all kind of signs that you're under eating, your metabolism is slowed down, and you're not in a thriving state. And the one issue that I see here is if you are not in a thriving state, if your body is not primed for fat loss, you are not going to lose body fat and you're not going to be seeing the weight loss that you want to see if you're not in a state where your body is primed to do so. If your metabolism isn't operating at a state that it can support fat loss, if you don't have enough muscle mass on you that you could support more fat loss, or if you are just not focused on the right thing, because I hear a lot, I want to lose weight and I want to get really toned. They're a little bit different. Getting toned means that you're showing off the muscle mass that you have. Losing weight means you're trying to lose body fat, right? More than likely. Losing weight could mean just a number on a scale, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming from body fat, But it also could mean, more than likely, when I'm talking to women, it means they want to lose body fat in a specific area. But if you don't have that muscle mass to begin with, you're not going to just get toned. You're not going to see muscle definition by losing weight. You have to have that muscle mass there. And if you're not lifting weights regularly, if you haven't ever lifted weights, if you're not eating enough to sustain the muscle you've built and you're just focused on a deficit, you're going to muscle waste. You're going to get rid of the muscle, the mass that you've been building over the years, because your body's going to need energy sources. And there's a process that it pulls from muscle mass because it's easy to do so. And it's an easy source that it can use up. And you have to make sure that these are all kind of aligned. And I'm not trying to add to your overwhelm because I know that it's already an overwhelming concept, but I want you to actually understand what is happening versus believing that you just need to eat more, you need to eat less and work out more, because that's not going to get you the outcome that you want. And if you do it too restrictive and you do it too fast, you're going to burn yourself out and you're not going to be consistent with it, which starts that on-off cycle. If you did really, really well for 2 weeks, you saw progress because you basically lost a bunch of water weight. You put yourself in a really restrictive state where your body was losing weight, not necessarily body fat. And then all of a sudden it's stalled and then it was too restrictive. You weren't seeing progress at the same time. So then we jump back into old habits and then the cycle continues. Then you get the motivation kick again because your weight went back up and you want to go back down. You start the diet again. It's too restrictive and the cycle continues. And I see this over and over and over again. And the biggest thing is because we've lost the plot. You've lost the structure, you've lost the strategy, and you've lost the commitment during the hard times when sometimes the magic doesn't follow right away. Sometimes there isn't that instant gratification, and sometimes work is just work, and you have to be able to pay your dues every single day, even when the outcome isn't following maybe the way that we want it to. And just know that that outcome and that identity shift is really what we're working to. So that means you have to get comfortable by doing uncomfortable things, but that you also need to get so clear on who you want to be and that identity that you want that you're willing to make those sacrifices, even for a short period of time, potentially a long period of time, so you can get that outcome. And this is what I really, really love doing for a living with transformation coaching, is we're not just looking at coaching as, okay, I want to understand fitness and nutrition. We are focused on transforming ourselves into who we want to be, because generally it doesn't just mean we want to lose weight. It doesn't mean that we want to have more muscle mass. Yes, the physique aspect is encouraging. Yes, we want to feel our best. We want to feel confident in the clothes we wear, but also it is an identity shift because you start to live a different way. You start to show up a different way. You have more mental clarity. You feel better. You feel more confident. And it shows up in other areas of your life when you were pouring into your fitness and your nutrition, because fitness and nutrition is so challenging. It is inherently hard, and it is not something that you can just have. You know the people that show up to the gym every single day who are eating healthy and who have the physique that they want because they're putting in the work and they're generally not just getting it. The genetic aspect that people are always talking about of, oh, they must have good genetics and that's why they look that way, I do not believe is a real thing. I do believe that people carry weight differently based on genetics, but I do believe that if you are fit, if you have muscle mass, if you are lean and you are toned, you've put in work to get that. And it doesn't just stay by going back into old habits after you get the results that you want. It has come through an identity shift and changing who you are and living in the identity of the person that you want to be forever, and basically finding ways to incorporate that into your lifestyle. And generally those have very positive outcomes because you start to transform other aspects of your life, whether it's your mental health, your relationship with the digital world and social media, your relationship with your family and your friends, how you feel and how you spend your time, what the things are that you spend your time doing. Those things all generally improve because you are happy and you are healthy and you feel your best and you're energized. When you are fatigued, when you're tired, when you don't have the results you want, you feel like you're putting the work in, you feel depressed, you don't have good mental health, and you spend all of your time doing things that you don't necessarily want to do and feel like they're bad habits, but you just have a hard time getting out of them and getting out of your comfort zone, you don't generally feel your best. You're probably more depressed and you're not showing up for yourself in the best way, but you're also not showing up for other people in the best way. So I think it's more than just fitness and nutrition. That is a huge part of it, because I believe that if you want to be your best, you have to show up as your best. And that comes from taking care of yourself and being physically fit or healthy in a way that makes you feel your best so that you can show up energized and that you can show up as the best version of yourself because you feel confident and you feel happy and you feel content. And that comes from the hard work. You do not just get that. It does not just show up, and it is a quality that you have to build. It's something you have to commit to and you have to pay towards every single day, whether you want to show up, whether you're tired, whether you wanted to wake up or not. And if you have the time to commit to it, you find a way because it's important to you. You know the outcome is worth it and you know that you feel your best. And generally that will move you into a transformation where you show up as your best, but you also start to see other areas of your lives transform, whether that's in your career, your family life, your friends and your relationships. It will generally transform other areas because you understand the concept of shifting that identity, getting outside of your comfort zone, doing things when they're uncomfortable, and doing the hard work on a daily basis. And that's what I need you to understand when it comes to your transformation is it's not going to be something that just happens overnight. It's not going to be something that is going to be easy. It's not going to be something that you're never going to not want to quit. It's not going to be something that you're going to start being a morning person and never hit snooze again. You're going to get every single workout in and never miss it. You're not going to cut a workout short. You're going to feel every single workout is the best workout you've ever had. You're going to enjoy every single meal from here on out. It's hard work. And even when you get to a point where you feel like, okay, I'm more physically fit than I've ever been, it's still hard work. It is truly getting into the identity of this is what I want and I know what it takes and I'm going to do the work regardless of if I want to or not. But the way that you keep the sanity and the way that you actually stick with it long term and not fall into that on and off cycle is the structure and strategy in which you apply it. If you are constantly trying to figure out how to attain those results and constantly trying to figure out what to do, and you're bouncing from plan to plan and nutrition plan and diet plan and workout plan, and you can't stay consistent with anything, you are one of two things. It is too restrictive and it's not meant to be done long term, or you have no structure and you're not going to get a long-term outcome because you cannot stick to it long term. And if that structure piece is missing and that piece is going to basically impact the fact of you can't do time under tension and you can't commit to it long term, you're not going to see the results you want. It's going to get you into that on and off cycle where you start over every single Monday, you start over in January, you burn out and you lose that momentum and you lose that motivation, and then you fall off at the tracks. And then you want to start back up again when it gets bad enough and you just can't live with the reality that you have right now and you want to get back into starting over. And then you look at the wrong plan, or you do something too restrictive, or you look at the wrong things and you don't have the structure and the placement of the things that are important that are going to get you results. And then you fall off track. And it is so common because there's so much information out there. There's so many different opinions out there. I think you could go into Google and you could find anything to agree with you and you could find anything to disagree with you. There's so many conflicting opinions, and you have to be very careful about the ones that you ingest. But I also think it's so important that you understand that it's not that hard. It is a requirement of committing to the identity that you want, the outcome that you want, and the hard work. And you need to have consistency in 3 areas, and that is nutrition, daily activity, and training. Those need to be consistent, they need to be challenging, and they need to increase intensity as you go and align back to that bigger goal of yours, whether that is going into a reverse where you are building up your calories slowly to make sure that you can help your metabolism be in a thriving state before you go into a fat loss phase, or is it making sure that you're slowly decreasing your calories versus going from point A to point B, where maybe you're eating 2,100 calories right now and you go and find a random macro calculator that tells you to eat 1,400 calories based on the goal weight you want to achieve, and now you drop down a massive amount of calories and you have nowhere else to go from there. That's the importance of understanding what's your structure, what's your plan, and how can you commit to this long term. So I want to break it down a little bit in terms of your comfort zone and how you're going to make these changes and how to focus on the right things versus focusing on everything. Because I think this is where people get carried away is they start to focus on everything and they start to focus on the things that they can do and add into their lives to the point of burnout. And they'd say, I can't do this anymore. I can't work out for 2 hours. I can't constantly just eat chicken and rice. I'm bored of my nutrition. Now I feel overwhelmed because I'm not seeing results fast enough. So now I'm questioning if I'm eating the right nutrition and I can't keep up with 15,000 steps a day. And now I don't know where to go from here because if I drop my steps, am I going to ruin my deficit? And now it's just too many rolling pieces and too many things that you're trying to maneuver and you burn yourself out and you get into that off cycle. But there's the other caveat of not making the change because you're afraid and you don't know what to do. You're either looking for trying to find the perfect time, you're trying to find the perfect plan, or you're trying to convince yourself that you can stick to this so that you don't disappoint yourself, so that you can start taking the action because these are true pain points and these are true things that you will go through. And I think everyone goes through this. I was trying to explain this at the beginning of the episode. I still have points in my comfort zone where I struggle with shifting my identity into the things that I'm growing, into the areas that I'm focusing on, and even just feeling like I can commit all of this time to this and still focus on building a family and becoming a mom one day. And it's overwhelming and it's outside of my comfort zone. And I'll tell you a story of when I started lifting weights back in college. This was kind of my identity shift that I didn't even realize I was going through. It was 2012 to date myself. So I don't feel like fitness and nutrition was that big or weightlifting was that big for women yet. There was a few that I would follow, but I feel like that was more like 2016 that I started to really see a lot of like the bigger names come out with like weightlifting, and it started to become more of a thing. 2012 is around the time when I started lifting weights, and it was so uncomfortable for me. I came from a soccer background. I had done soccer for about 16 years at a competitive level. I was doing travel leagues, and one day it just abruptly stopped, and I didn't know what to do. So for like the first 6 months, I would just go to the gym and I would stay in my little corner and I would run on the treadmill. And when it would get really snowy out, which I was used to just like running in the snow with my team and during practice, but it wasn't as fun doing it by myself. So I really kind of like pushed myself to just go to the gym instead, because if I was just running in the snow, I wasn't enjoying it at the same level. I also wasn't playing the sport. I was just running at this point because it was all I knew. I was a midfielder. I'd done it for years, and that was the only activity that I really engaged in. So I felt like I was going through this identity crisis, but I was also stuck in my comfort zone, and I wasn't making the right changes. I was only focused on what I knew, and even though there was like a weight section right there and I had heard a little bit about it and my boyfriend did it, I still wasn't like fully convinced, and I also was intimidated by it. So I would just stay in my comfort zone. I would work out in my little corner. I would go run for 3 to 5 miles, and then I would go home. And that was kind of like the shift for me, because my routine had changed, my life had changed, but I was still staying in that comfort zone. And now, because things had changed a little bit, I wasn't running as much. I was eating a little bit different. I was on the go with college. I was up later. My routine was just so much different. I started to notice that I was getting a little like skinny fat. And I was like, okay, what do I do about this? Because this is new to me. And I felt like I was gaining weight, but I was also super unmotivated to do anything else. And when I started to not see results from just running on the treadmill, I started to be like, okay, so what do I do now? Almost kind of like I felt stuck and I didn't know what to focus on. And I had to really get uncomfortable and do something that I was a beginner at, and do something that I wasn't comfortable with, and research it and try it and just add things in one at a time. And that's when I really started to see the change, was when I stopped trying to do everything and stopped trying to just stick to the things that I was used to and started just adding in one thing at a time, whether that was adding in water and trying to hit a water goal. And I should do a whole episode on this. I think this would just be interesting to dive into. But I was uneducated about nutrition. I was uneducated about training. I was uneducated about weightlifting. I had no idea what to do next. And I felt like I was going through an identity crisis because everything I knew in high school just changed. And then I went to college and I was trying to still kind of piece that in with a completely different routine and a completely different life. And it just didn't work. And I knew it wasn't working, but I also didn't know where to start. So I started to just kind of take baby steps and started to try new things. I started first by going to nutrition school. I wanted to get my bachelor's in nutrition, and that's where I got really into nutrition and fitness. And after doing that for a couple of years, I got really into like holistic health and eating really healthy. And it's so funny the different phases I went through. I went through eating more vegan and eating more plant-based and not eating a lot of protein, to eating lower carbs and to eating fruits and vegetables. And there was so many different cycles I went through, but it was a matter of following all of these different plans and not really having any structure. And I wasn't seeing the results I wanted either, because I didn't know what to focus on. My nutrition was all over the place, and I was just trying and piecing together random things until I got to a point where I was just like, I am so tired of being stuck. I know what I want, and I'm going to just try and start applying these things. And I started applying changes to my nutrition. I started focusing on my protein. I started focusing on my daily activity. I started getting uncomfortable in the gym and just reading the manuals on how different exercises worked. And then I went and got certified and tried to learn about how to use the different equipment and how to actually apply these things, and just advanced one piece at a time. I was 18 and I'm 32 now. So that kind of just explains like the timeline in which you have to commit to things, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it's also a matter of learning how to get out of your comfort zone and maybe unlearning the bad habits that you have and unlearning the things that you do on a daily basis right now that are keeping you where you're at and keeping you stuck versus where you want to be, and how you can make those small changes, because they don't happen overnight and they don't happen all at once. And by changing 1,000 things, it's only going to overwhelm you. It's not going to get you the results that you want. It's only going to cause you to feel like you have 1,000 things to focus on now, and you have no time because you're focused on your career or your life has changed. Maybe you're not the same as you were in your 20s, and and life is different. You have kids, you have a bunch of different things that are your responsibility now. And you can't just add 15,000 things to your to-do list. If you do, you're going to be successful one week. And then what are you going to do the rest of the month? So you need to make sure that you have that baseline where you can kind of bridge the gap from where you are right now and how you can unlearn what is keeping you stuck, the things that are truly the problem for why you have not moved forward, and what you need to do next, and how you're going to kind of get out of your comfort zone in doing so, but also committing to that identity shift. So, how do you do that? And where do you start from here? I think the first thing is you need to understand where is your safe zone and why are you staying stuck? What are the areas that you feel you are stuck in? What is the thing that you keep going back to? What are the bad habits that you keep resulting to? And how do you prevent yourself from going back to those areas is going to be the piece that we work on next. You just kind of need to understand the why. Why do you do that? Where does that come from? Is it a trigger? Is it something you learned in the past? Is it an emotion? What is the core reasoning behind why you feel a certain way? And maybe the thing that keeps coming up. A very common one I hear is kind of emotional eating. When you are too restrictive or when you're too stressed, you lean into food for comfort. And the thought of losing weight and releasing that emotion that you have with food is really challenging. And it's mentally challenging for a lot of women to think about losing weight because they're going to lose the crutch that kind of helps them through the things that are stressful or when they're emotional and they don't know what other outlets to use. So that's something that you have to kind of come to terms with and understand what is the thing? What is the thing that is keeping me comfortable, but it's also keeping me stuck? And where do I see the consistent patterns? The next is understanding where is that structure missing? Do you have a missing structure in your nutrition? Do you have a missing structure in your workouts? Or do you have a missing piece in another aspect of your life, whether it's a bad habit or something that you engage in that seems to kind of bring your progress down? Is it an emotional trigger, something like binging? Is it a relationship disorder with food? What is the bigger thing that's kind of keeping you stuck and that's missing the structure and causing you to not have enough structure that you can be consistent? Is it too restrictive of a plan? Is it not knowing what to eat? Is it not knowing where to start? These are all valid, and I think they all have different solutions, especially depending on what you've tried, what has worked and what hasn't worked, and also where you want to go. So you kind of have to understand what's holding you back, but also where's the structure and the piece that is helping you move forward? Where is that missing and what's preventing you from moving forward? And then lastly, where's the growth? What is going to hold you accountable when it's hard? What is going to hold you to sticking to the plan and to committing to it, regardless of if results are following right now, if you can show up every single day, if you fail or you don't do as well as you wanted to, if it gets challenging or if you come to a roadblock that you don't know what to do next, maybe you go the wrong direction, what is going to help you turn around? It's going to help you get back to the place of where you continue to see progress and looking at it as redirection or a learning experience versus looking at it as failure and quitting, because that is where that cycle continues, is when you get to a point where it's either too hard, you don't have the accountability, you don't have the answers, or you're just overwhelmed with it all. And so then you just keep going in the wrong direction versus turning around. So those are the three core pieces that you need. It's to understand what is keeping you stuck, the structure that's missing, and how you're going to fix that. But then what is the accountability piece for making sure that you have the resources you need to keep going forward when it's so challenging that it's hard to stick to it and you're exhausted, you're out of time, you're not seeing results like you want, and maybe it's just a matter of pushing through or getting redirection. Because I think there's both, right? You can be on the wrong plan and not getting the results you want, and now you need a redirection. Maybe you need to turn around and try something different. But then there's also the challenging, it's just hard right now and it's exhausting, it's dark, it's cold, I'm uncomfortable, I'm tired, I have a lot going on, I have a lot of other things I'm managing, but I still need to show up. And how are you kind of making sure that those pieces are all aligned so that you still can and that you still have that ability to push past your comfort zone? And these things take time, but they also take the decision to decide you want this outcome enough. You have to make the choice that it's not a feeling, it's not feeling ready, it's not having all the information, it's not the perfect time. This is something that I think is so important to hear, especially as you're heading into the end of the year. January is not going to be the perfect time to start. January is not going to change your life just because it's a certain month or because it's a certain time in your head. What matters is the decision and the decision to take action and the decision of, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And I'm ready to find the identity of who I want to be and work towards those things daily and find a way to commit that into my lifestyle so I can stick to it and get the transformation I want. And those are the things you kind of have to understand first in order to kind of take that next step. If you're constantly waiting for the right decision to or the right thing to feel like it's right and to have that intuition or to feel like it's the right time of year, you're going to constantly, especially if you're already somebody who is in that cycle, stay in that cycle because you're just going to constantly go off feeling. And feeling is not always the best indication of reality. You sometimes don't feel your best. You sometimes don't feel as motivated. You sometimes don't feel like you want to do certain things. And sometimes it's a hard decision to actually do the things that you want to do. And this is what I always like to say to my clients is sometimes it comes down to just being an adult. We don't always get to do the things we want to do. We don't always get to feel the way we want to. We don't always get to thrive in situations. And sometimes things are just hard and they require hard work from us. They require commitment from us and they require dedication from us, even if we don't want to do them. And that is just the reality of it. I always like to tie it to like doing laundry or doing the dishes. It's not always something we ever feel like doing. At least I don't. I don't ever feel like doing the dishes or feel like doing a load of laundry, but I know that I need to. I know that it is required of me in order to have clean clothes or to have clean dishes and to not have a mess throughout my house. So I have to do them even when I don't want to. And there's no feeling that I ever am just like, all right, now is the time that I feel is the perfect time for doing dishes. It's more just a decision that I need to get them done and I need to move on with my day. And I think it's the same choice when it comes to making that shift and getting into that identity and getting out of your comfort zone is it is a decision of no longer wanting to be stuck and wanting to find the solution and getting between the gap of where you are right now to where you want to be and finding a way to do the hard work to do so. And I know that's a lot of information, so definitely listen to the podcast a few times if you are still digesting it and trying to kind of identify it for yourself. I have put together a few different resources for you, whether that's a transformation roadmap to kind of go through the areas that you're stuck. And it's more of like a diagnostic tool to kind of help you work through these things, to identify where you might be struggling, where you feel stuck. And it's supposed to be kind of like, okay, this is like standing out to me. This is an area that I feel like keeps coming up. So you can kind of identify those things. So maybe download that and then go back and listen to the podcast again. That could be potentially helpful for you. I also have a macro form that I will calculate your macros for you. This was very popular. So I will just say, please forgive me if there is some delay in response because there has been a lot of popularity with this form. So I just want to make sure that you have the ability to chat with me and get answers about your nutrition, kind of where your starting point is. So I have that link down below for like getting an idea of where your macros are at or where they should be and chatting through that with you. But just know that this is a very popular form. It did fill up really quickly the last 2 weeks. So if there is a delay in response, I'm not ignoring you and I will get back to you even if it's a couple of days. But that is the options that I have kind of below to kind of help you get a starting point, whatever that may look like, and kind of getting an idea of where to go next and how to get unstuck from where you are right now. I'm also opening the wait list for one-on-one coaching for January and for February. Spots are filling up quickly. I just filled my last spot for December. So January and February are filling up pretty quickly. So definitely if you're interested in that or just interested in the process and looking at your transformation, please fill that out and let's get on a call and just kind of chat through what you're going through and seeing if you're a fit for the program. Like I've said in the past, I don't accept everybody and not everybody is a fit for the program, but it is something that you have to be ready for that change. You have to be ready to make the decision that you're wanting to get from being stuck to finding the identity that you want and building that lifestyle and transforming your life. And it requires a lot of work from you and it requires hard work. So that is something that if you just are stuck and you've tried everything, you don't know what to do, I think this would be a great next step for you and something that you should definitely explore if you're interested. And we can kind of just chat through what that would look like. So I will link all of that down below for you. But thank you so much for listening to today's episode and me just kind of rambling through. I wanted this to be kind of like a best friend FaceTime kind of thing because I've come so close with all of you and I just love chatting with you guys. I did get a few questions about the subscription only podcast. So I just wanted to answer them here. The subscription only podcast is a paid subscription. It is like $9 a month, I want to say. And there's a link for that in the show notes down below. It is more deep dive content on specific topics, kind of like today. So think about today, but even like a higher coaching session where I'm kind of giving you things to kind of like work through and giving you ways to figure out this transformation and giving you more like action items. There's also some resources that are included in that, but that is a paid subscription. So that is linked down below. And if you become a paid subscriber, then you get access to the episodes. I don't believe they show up on Spotify or Apple Podcast. I think that they solely are from like the link down below. So you might not see them. I'm trying to get that figured out, but there's always the subscriber episode link down below in the show notes. So if you're interested in that, you can find that down in the show notes below as well, or just message me and I will make sure that you can get the link as well. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode and I will talk to you next week in the next episode.